will be talking about our Global Streaming Insights Project 3 for course stat C1000 number 62364 by Veronica Camacho and Emily Perez. So in our data introduction, the dataset that we chose has to do with ratings on streaming devices based on different genres. We chose this project because streaming has become a big part of how we watch movies and shows today. Some values we have is numerical values, which is age and rating, categorical values, which is genre and gender, and our dimensions is 16 columns and 6,215 rows, with a sample size of 6,214. For Project 3, we focused on ratings, genre, age, and gender, and if any had correlation with one another, or if one category had an effect on the other. And for our next slide, we have our recap. In our recap for Project 1, age was evenly distributed across viewers, ratings skewed lower, genres were fairly balanced with documentary slightly higher. And for Project 2, we have genre probabilities were balanced and summed to 1. Our age histogram showed a uniform distribution, and we taught binomial distribution and applied it. So on to the next slide, we have confidence interval with a mean of 39.66 296 and a standard number of 17.57 132 with our sample size of 6,214, which is going to be on the side on the top left. Then we have on the right 95% confidence interval for average age using, so that's going to be the 95. And as for, we're moving on onto our confidence interval, we did have our evidence and our information. It's going to be on the top left. It's going to be the mean of 39.66 296 with the standard number of 17.57 132 with the sample size of 6,214. So on the bottom left, we have the 95% confidence interval for the population mean age is the lower bound is 39.23, and then the higher bound is 40.10, concluding a 39.23 and a 40.10. That would be the confidence interval for the average age. The 95 confidence interval tells us how much uncertainty there is around the sample mean age. Based on our sample data, we estimate that the average age in the sample is 39, and the margin of error is plus minus 0.44 years. The sample mean is very precise because the sample size is very large. We are 95% that the true average of the entire population lies between those numbers. This means that if we repeated the sampling process many times, 95% of the interval we create would contain the true population mean age. Moving on to regression and correlation. So the variables that we used was the age and ratings, age by ratings. And then the interpretation of regression is the slope is 0.0006 and age has almost no effect on ratings. The increase per year is basically 0. And the intercept is 2.962 with the predicted rating age is at 0. And we do have those at the top right in our graph right there. And then we also have at the bottom the correlation coefficient, which is R, which is 0.008, and it is a negligible correlation, meaning that there are no meaningful relationships between age and ratings stay nearly the same across all ages. Age does not predict how high or low someone rates content.
So for our t-test, we wanted to see if there was a difference in ratings between male and female. On this screenshot included right here, N1 is the female rating and N2 is the male ratings. And the 6,214 is both of these numbers combined, which becomes our sample size. And for our hypothesis, there is no difference in streaming ratings between male and female. And for our hypothesis 1, there's a difference in streaming ratings between male and female. Our alpha level would just be 0.05, which is the standard level that we used in our formula. And we typed this formula into Excel and we got 0.606219, which means this is our alpha. So our p-value is greater than alpha. Therefore, we fail to reject the hypothesis, which is there's no difference in streaming ratings between male and female. So this means between males and females, there's no significant difference in ratings and it's fairly even across the board. So not one was favored more than the other. So using our ANOVA and Tukey method, we found that our p-value is 0.156 and our standard x value is 0.05. Since our p-value is greater than our x, we fail to reject the hypothesis. So that means we're accepting there's no difference in ratings between action, comedy, and documentary movies. And then testing the Tukey method for X1 and X2. This is comparing action and comedy. Our p-value is 0.8912, meaning it's greater than our standard alpha level. That means there's no significant difference between action and comedy ratings. And for X1 and X3, this is action and documentaries. Our p-value is 0.3471, once again making it greater than the standard alpha level 0.05, also meaning there's no significant difference between action and comedy ratings. And the X2 and X3 values is comparing comedy and documentaries. Once again, p-value is 0.3471, making it greater than the alpha level of 0.05. So altogether, all three of these, there's no significant difference between comedy and documentary ratings and each one of these. So between action and comedy, action and documentaries, and comedies and documentaries, there's no difference between the ratings. What is chi-square? Chi-square tests relationships between two categorical variables. It compares observed versus expected frequencies. We could use it in the future to test, is genre preference related to gender or is country related to watch duration categories? In conclusion, we found that the confidence interval for the average age is 95%. The average age is 39.23 and the other is 40.10, making it a very narrow interval. We found between correlation and regression, between age and ratings is 0.008, making it a negligible relationship, meaning ratings stay nearly the same across all ages. When making our t-test, the p-value was greater than our standard level of 0.05, meaning we failed to reject the hypothesis. In other words, this means there were no significant differences in ratings between males and females. It was fairly even across the board. And when also completing our ANOVA and Tukey table, we found there's no difference in ratings between action, comedy, and documentary movies. It's also fairly even. And when comparing each of the groups to one another, there was also no difference in ratings. It was fairly even across all of them. Here are our